Reality.
Therapist perception.
Bachelorette. This is Reactivity TV for Bachelor in Paradise episodes 8 and 9. And we are going to give our therapist perspectives of what's happening and what we just witnessed this week with all of the breakups and all of the reunions and everything.
There was a lot. Yeah. There in terms of the breakups, that was like the theme of the episode, and we saw them done poorly. We saw them done great. We saw them be received really poorly and also like pretty great too. So it was really interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm. It really was. Was there a breakup or a reunion in particular that you wanted to talk about?
I really was thinking a lot about Jill. Jill and Jacob. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, the reason that Jill and Jacob really stood out to me is because I've been trying to put myself in Jill's position and trying to empathize with her, because she's been having such a really challenging time since the beach kind of like separated. And I'm trying to remind myself that they've just had the one date. And I understand that Jill had like kind of a difficult time forming a connection, and she found this connection with Jacob. They had that one date, a date that felt great. We talked about that date, that it was kind of vulnerable and nice that they connected in that way. However, the feelings that she has been expressing the last couple of episodes and her reaction to her reunion with Jacob just seemed really disproportionate to what their relationship was. And I do understand that things are kind of different on Paradise, and the rules of the game are different than they are in real life. It did get me really thinking about what is real, quote unquote, or like what feels realistic compared to real life in terms of what Jill was going through. Was that experience of like, okay, we had a good date. Again, in the real world, in the wild, we had a good date.
In the wild.
Not on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
We had a great date. I feel a great connection. I feel like this could really be something. And then the other person might not feel quite the same way. Mm-hmm. And there's such a kind of a confusion or a misunderstanding of like, but we had fun. Like, can't we both agree that we had fun? And I think there's a lot of maybe expectations that can go into having a really good first date. And I think the thing to remember for anyone, and what Jill seemed to forget, is that it's kind of easy to have a good first date. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're meant to be, your destiny's written in the stars or something like that. Mm-hmm. And that seemed to be really hard for Jill to kind of like keep in perspective. Mm-hmm. So that was what was resonating with me, was her reaction to this breakup based on her one date with Jacob.
Right. Well, and how her what she was going through when she was separated from Jacob really did seem disproportionate to the time that they had together, and yeah, that it was just the one date. And then what I thought was really interesting too was when she reunited with him, that she looked like she was just so excited to see him, as if there was no hesitation. Like when Genevieve came and wow, I'm giving Genevieve some props here. Mm-hmm. When she came and approached Aaron, she was really hesitant and she didn't know where they stood, and so she kind of came at it in that way, where Jill ran over to him, like jumped in his arms, like got super excited, as if it was automatic that they were going to be on the same page. And then she was kind of nodding along, like thinking that he was going to be there with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which kind of was confusing, yes, because the entire time
she didn't think that he would.
Right. And that's why it seemed like she was sulking. Yeah, it did not match. And I wonder what that was about, you know, like what was going through her mind when she was kind of preparing to reunite with him. It seemed like all of those worries and that sadness. Like,
and then if she wanted to let him think that she was okay or that she had had a good time, that like that's kind of how she was presenting. But then she went ahead and told him that she was in bed the whole time and playing with her crystals and was like miserable the whole time. So like, that also didn't match. There were a lot of confusing ways that she went about the whole thing.
Yeah. I found that whole thing kind of confusing. And it made me wonder, I know we talk about this a lot, but it made me wonder, like, in terms of the way that she was trying to communicate what she wanted or what she was looking for, or the revelation that she might have come, or reflection that she might have had in her time apart, it wasn't clear. And it kind of felt like she was almost trying to do, or she was testing out different things to try to do or say in order to get the result that she wanted. That's one thing I was kind of like thinking about when I was watching it, because none of it seemed to make like align, as we're both saying, with like how she was being depicted on TV and what she was saying to her castmates and the camera.
Right. Yeah.
What did you think of their breakup overall?
I didn't think it was one of the worst ones, but I wasn't super thrilled with how Jacob phrased everything, and the reason being because he wanted to, or it sounded like he wanted to see where she was coming from. It's like see how her week was first, and like almost like warming her up to see how she was before he dropped the news on her that he, not that he was with anybody else, but that he didn't want to be with her, and so I thought that was kind of a cop out for him to want her to first hopefully admit that she found a connection, or she's not interested in him anymore, instead of coming out and flat out saying, you know, the time apart this week, I went on a date and I really just learned a little bit more about what I'm looking for, and gone at it from that angle, instead of waiting for her to say, hey, I also don't want to be in this relationship anymore. I also don't want to pursue you anymore.
Yeah.
Or for her to just initiate it first, so that he didn't have to, like, be the bad guy.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely noticed that, where he was like, so...
you tell me about your week first.
You go first.
Yeah.
Because you could see there was, like, that hopeful glimmer in his eye that, like, oh, maybe she's reached the same conclusion that I have. And I get it. Of course, it would have been so much easier for both of them if she was on the same page. And ending a relationship is really hard. And especially, he seemed to genuinely, like, care about Jill. Like, she's a cool person. She's just not my person. And I think that's sometimes the hardest spot to be in when you're breaking up, is when there isn't, like, a discernible, definable reason. And you could kind of see Jacob wrestling with that, and took kind of like the cop-out role to not hurt her, to not be the bad guy. Yeah.
And then there was her reaction, which I know you have some thoughts on too.
Yeah, so she like ran away. Which, okay, like flooded with emotion, get out of there, she's packing her bag, she's going. But when she was in the car, she started to do this thing where she was really villainizing him, or being just kind of cruel, where she was saying, like, why am I getting so upset? He's just a Lyft driver. He had to sell his couch for money. Like, why am I getting so upset? And I thought, like, okay, you don't need to...
Okay, don't get upset with Facebook Marketplace, because it's a great tool.
Yeah, yes. But she became so judgmental of him, his lifestyle, his choices, and needed to use that as a like receptacle for all of her feelings, that he broke up with her in like one of the nicest ways possible. And it's really hard to get over someone when they're really nice. And so she was able to, it was, again, we talk about how people are very resourceful, they're very adaptive, and that is a way that she was trying to like make herself feel better. Like, okay, I got rejected, but the person I got rejected by was kind of a loser, is basically what she was saying. And that I felt like was very relatable and also not very nice.
No, not very nice. And it just kind of goes to show that sometimes when somebody is broken up with, they just take that thing that they see as a flaw and just blow it up. And meanwhile, like 3 minutes ago, that might not have been a problem for her, or it might not have been so much of an issue, or like maybe it wasn't an issue at all. And then all of a sudden it really just became, oh wow, like I shouldn't even be upset about him anyway. Like who's he?
Right. It's that kind of like dissonance that happens when we're, whether it's faced with a choice or when something difficult comes up. But you do bring up a really good point, is that like, was this, obviously she knew about these things, was this something that she would have, if they had remained together, would have come back to bite them later, and would have been one of those things where like, oh, maybe it's a red flag, but it's not a deal breaker. Who knows? Like, we'll never know. But that's also really interesting in breakups. Like, again, there are all sorts of ways that we try to get over an ex, or especially when we've been broken up with. But oftentimes when we step out of a relationship, we might be able to see things in the relationship more clearly, or we might be able to give them the proper weight when we no longer have skin in the game. And so who knows, this could have been something that really, really bothered her in a relationship. But
she was just seeing past it.
Exactly, because she just wanted to be with him. And that happens also in relationships. So, of course, we never know, but we'll never know in this case. But that it was also something notable, that the way that Jill managed this breakup was, like, very relatable. Not quite, like, healthy, but relatable.
Yeah. Now, I know that we didn't necessarily plan on talking about this, but what was going on between Johnny and Victoria and Alex, and the questions that Johnny had for Victoria, since we're talking about, like, I mean, career, for instance, like with the whole Lyft driver thing. Like, she asked him, and, you know, what's your career plan? What are your ambitions? And he was so offended by that. And on the one hand, I understand where he could be coming from. He's already feeling pretty hurt and vulnerable, to a point that she's now comparing him to another person. And it kind of looked like it really hit more on something that he might be insecure about with himself. He answered by just saying, I'm passionate and motivated or something. Like, that didn't answer the question. And maybe he doesn't have an answer to the question. And well, I was just thinking, too, like, I loved that she asked that question. Again, completely reasonable question to ask.
Reasonable question when you're dating someone in your late 20s, like as Victoria is, that if you're wanting to kind of choose a life partner, you want to know about what your life might be like. And you want to know if that person's aspirations or goals line up with yours. Totally reasonable question. And probably for Johnny, already feeling kind of insecure, already feeling vulnerable, he was a little bit more defensive. But I also think, like, what do men learn or boys learn? That, like, the indicator for success for a man has, like, we've been socialized to believe it's about being a provider, having a good career. And so that's literally on the line for him right now, as a determining factor for this woman that he wants to be with. Like, that must feel insecure. And I'm not saying that is correct, but I'm just saying that is a societal expectation out there. And And so I think that was probably sitting with him too, like whether insecurity or feeling, you know, maybe at 26, I don't know, or I'm still figuring it out. It might not be as far along as you or as Alex. Alex? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Who's like 8 years older than me.
Right.
Yeah, that was a really interesting conversation. Again, kind of realistic, and there was like no wrong on either side. It was like both sides of that conversation were really reasonable.
Yeah. And then with Shanae, Logan.
So speaking of unreasonable.
Yes, the whole Shanae, Logan, Kate thing. I have like thoughts on each one of them.
Go
all
for
pretty
it.
negative, honestly.
Wasn't great.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to first start, you might think, maybe start with Shanae, but I want to start with Kate, because as Shanae and Logan were talking, Kate was off in the background, like, making faces and kind of, and laughing, as were the peanut gallery up in the wing up there.
Did not love that.
Yeah, that was just so immature, and yeah, it was a lot of things. And so I just wanted to point that out, and how she was kind of going about this whole, like, I won, or she was kind of going about it in like a whole, like, I won this guy kind of way, and like she was being a sore winner about it.
Well, and it makes you really question, was it about winning or was it about Logan?
Exactly. And if it was about Logan, where was your humility? You know, and also feeling for Shanae, feeling for this person that also had a connection with him that's going to be let down. Like, what are your motives in being catty about it and being, just like showing off about it and making a joke out of it.
Right, and we kind of talked about this in a previous Reactivity TV episode, but when there, like, maybe is another party involved, that person can get villainized in that way. And it seemed like, for whatever, Kate and Shanae both did this to one another, kind of like targeting the other woman, literally and figuratively there, when I don't even understand why they either needed to be factored in. It was about Logan.
Right. But then it became about them.
But then, exactly, which was more distracting to Kate's relationship with Logan and Shanae's breakup with Logan.
Yeah. What are some of the thoughts you had
around Kate or the entire situation?
The whole trio.
So I definitely, like, watching Shanae go in, like, so confident, like, I know he still cares for me. It's like, good for you, girl. Yeah. Which kind of surprised me, because I was hearing her narrative say, like, he's fought for me, he's done this, I know he's here for me. And it's like, but you had to pull that out of him. And even then, it was kind of like a half-hearted attempt. So, yeah, her confidence seemed disproportionate to what was being shown, anyway, to us. So that was curious. But then as the breakup started with Logan and Shanae, initially I was like, all right, Logan, good job. I loved that he said, I found another connection. It's Kate. With Kate, I feel seen and heard, and that's important to me, basically is what he said. Oh, that would have been beautiful.
Done.
Love it. That's enough. Love that. And then he kept talking, and I was like, oh, no, stop.
And then he made it about how she pushed him away by juggling him and James.
Yes.
And talking about how she was in between two men and all that. And then she was like, whoop, here come my defenses.
Of course. But can you blame her for being defensive?
No.
He literally was telling her, like, you're the reason. Yeah. And, you know, Logan, when the proper time would have been to say this to Shanae is in the moment when it happened, when Shanae was making you feel this way.
Right. When she said, you should have told me.
You should have told me. She was right. And for Logan to kind of hold that back and then use it against her, was not so unfair. How would Shanae have known how much this hurt you if you had not told her? We're not mind readers. And yeah, maybe it obvious, or maybe it's like common decency. I don't know, however you want to spin that. And like, we can't make assumptions in relationships. We just can't. That's how people get hurt, and that's how we don't get our needs met. And so I just, I guess I just felt like that was a low blow, and that was mean. And I wonder what made him make that choice to not stop at, I feel seen and heard, and that feels good to me. I don't know. Maybe he felt bad and he thought he was trying to give her an explanation, because that's sometimes what people seek in breakups, but that wasn't the way to do it, and it wasn't necessary, and it did way more harm than help. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was my thought. What about you?
Why was he asking everybody to give him a hand, like give him their hand, or ask him for a hug? Mm-hmm. That just didn't seem, it didn't fit. No. It looked uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. When he did it with Sarah, the camera zoomed in on the hands.
Oh my gosh, she was so uncomfortable.
So awkward. Also, again, I'll give it to Shanae for refusing it. Like, she did not want it. Mm-hmm. It was just like in all these Bachelor seasons when people have a heated breakup, and then there's like a small lull, and then it's, well, can I walk you out?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, ooh, no, I will walk myself out, because we are no longer. We already just did our goodbye. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, well, I mean, that was Logan's attempt to make himself feel better for hurting someone's feelings. Right. And props to Shanae for doing what felt right to her.
I'm not responsible for making you feel better right now.
Yes. Perfect. Well said. Yeah. It's true. Logan, you made a decision. Deal with the consequences, the emotional consequences of your decision. You did nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. How you went about it wasn't great, but like, yeah, do you have to sit with that? I know it's uncomfortable. And it's, not anybody else's responsibility to make you feel better about doing a hard thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's lots more with them.
Yeah. So, yes, so we will continue. We were only halfway through this journey of Bachelor in Paradise. So we will be back with more Reactivity TV. And, yeah.
Cool.